And as this happened, something amazing took place. I heard a very loud voice, and I knew immediately this was the voice of God. And he was speaking to me so clearly, so very loudly. And he said to me, "You are going to die, but I have things for you to do." And straight away I thought, hang on, I'm going to die, but you have things for me to do. This doesn't make any sense to me. And God just spoke to me and said, "Go inside, pack a bag, and be ready to go to the hospital." So I did. I went into the house and I packed a bag. I was still able to move around to some extent, called an ambulance and waited for the ambulance to arrive. We weren't more than perhaps a couple of kilometers down the road, and he then said to me, "I'm going to give you some more morphine and some more nitroglycerol just to make sure your blood pressure is nice and low and all the load's taken off your heart." So he did that. And immediately after that, I just had this weird sensation. I just knew I was about to go unconscious. I knew I was about to pass out, but I was perfectly well aware and perfectly conscious. And I could feel myself just floating in this darkness, and it was very pleasant. It felt like floating in water, and I was weightless and felt beautiful. It really did. It was a nice dreamy sensation, and I thought to myself, I could put up with this for a while. This is lovely. I was floating along in this darkness, and as I became afraid, I felt myself starting to sink down as if I was sinking into deep water. And that made me more afraid. So I then looked down. I could sort of look and perceive to some extent. It was very dark, and I looked down, and what I perceived was a very deep, bottomless black pit. It felt as if it went forever, and it felt it was nothingness, complete and absolute nothingness. It was just a void, absolutely nothing there. And I was very afraid of sinking down into this void. I did not want to go there. I continued to float for a while. And not too long after that, a hand reached down and just grabbed me by the wrist and said to me, "You don't want to go that way," and started to drag me upwards. And I looked and I saw this looked like a man in a white robe, and he just simply carried me upwards very, very quickly. It felt as if we were ascending at an enormous pace. It was a bit like, I don't know if anyone's ever watched the show Star Trek, and when they go into warp speed, it was like I was in warp speed. Everything was blurring past me, and I was traveling at a huge pace. And then after a few minutes of this, I suddenly just came to rest, and I came to stop. And slowly, my vision came into focus, and I could see what was around me. And it was a group of probably half a dozen angels. There was about 6 or 7 of them. They're beautiful, amazing beings. They were very tall, and they were shining slightly. And I was just absolutely awestruck with these beings and who and what they were. And I just lay there and looked at them for some period of time. And I could, interestingly, feel their thoughts, and they could feel my thoughts. There was no speech. I could hear what they were thinking, and they could hear what I was thinking. So it was an amazing experience to just sit there and look at them and to just sense the deep, deep, ageless wisdom that they had. And this was something I was just feeling. It wasn't something I could see visually. It was something I could feel inside myself. And I felt very small in their presence. They seemed to be so immensely wise and beautiful. And I felt like nothing. I felt this big to be with them. I consider myself to be reasonably intelligent. I have a PhD. I'm a university lecturer. But these beings were on another level. They were just so far above what we are that I find it difficult to explain. And in a little while, the one who came to get me came up to me and said, "You have a choice to make. We have brought you here. We've come out to meet you. And we've brought you here because you have to now choose. Do you wish to go on with us and be in paradise and stay there forever? Or do you wish to return to your life on earth?" This, you may think, was an easy choice, but it was not. It was not an easy choice. The power and the love that was just emanating out of this being was incredible. I never have felt more at home. I never have felt more loved. I never have felt more that I belonged there with these beings. I felt completely wonderful. I was almost exploding with the power of the love that was just rising up inside me. It was beautiful. It was an incredible experience. And I just had to stop and think. And then I had to think about my situation at home, and I had children. I also had a daughter who was in a wheelchair. She'd been struck by a car and had quite severe brain damage. I had a young 8-year-old son, 12 and 15-year-old daughters. I had responsibilities. I had a life that I'd been ripped away from, and I started to get afraid of the death. And this brought a reaction from the angels. They all came to me and gathered around me and said, "No, no, we need to come. You can't be afraid here. This is not somewhere where there's fear. There's only joy and love and peace in this place." So they calmed me down, and that beautiful sense of love gradually restored within me. And I thought about it and I said, no, I really think I need to go back to my life. I don't feel that my life is finished. I feel I have lots of things to do. I feel there's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of opportunities and things for me to complete with my life on earth that I haven't done yet. And they understood and they said, that's fine. And at this stage, that one who came to get me just turned to one of the angels and said, go and check the vessel and see if it is good. And by this, he was talking about my body. So one of the angels flew off, and in the distance, the distance, I could see myself lying in the ambulance, and the ambulance operators, the paramedics, working around me and looking after my body. And the angel just floated down, and I could see him moving around inside the ambulance and observing my body and what was happening. So while we were waiting, I just turned around to this being who had come to rescue me, and I just said, "Who are you?" He just looked human. He didn't look like the other angels. He just looked like a man, but glowing and in a white gown. And I had a fairly good idea who he was. And to be in his presence was something I'll never forget, and it's changed me completely. So after this, he withdrew from me again, and I was just left breathless, just sitting there going, wow, what was that? That was huge. That was amazing. And shortly after that, the angel returned and came back up, and we saw him approaching, and he said, the vessel is good, which obviously meant my body was in a fit state for me to return. It was interesting. He was talking to the angels and saying, show him this. Yes, let him see this, but don't let him see that part. It was very selective about what he was willing to show me that would happen to me in the future. And he started to talk to me about there was no guarantee that if I returned to Earth, I would be able to come back. He said, it depends on your choices and how you live the rest of your life on Earth if you return. I can't promise you that you're going to be coming back. You need to make the choices. You need to stay aligned with me. You need to stay in your faith and in your belief to come back here. This is something I really did understand, that my choices were what would dictate my future, and that it was up to me to choose the right path to lead me back again to heaven. So that's pretty largely what he told me at that point in time. And it was interesting that he was commanding the angels. He was telling them what was happening. He was showing them what was happening. They were listening to him as a superior. He was definitely above those angels, and he was their commander, their leader. So after this period of time, he then said, okay, it's now time for you to go back. As you've chosen to go back, I will send you back into your body. And then I just felt myself floating down again. And once again, as if I was floating in water, and it was a very dreamy, relaxing, light, beautiful sensation. And then I sort of looked up and saw a light, and I headed towards that light, and then I emerged, bang, and I was back in my body.